Did not tell Marianne that he ran a bookmaking operation connected to the Philly mob, a mob headed by the so-called docile Don, Angelo Bruno. Bruno, in return for a piece of the action, would make sure that Tommy could always pay his bet winners, the standard mob racket.
A bookmaker, if he got big enough, was going to have to seek out the mob to edge off their bets. And so Bruno would become a partner. He would be invited to be a partner.
Tommy and Marianne had two sons, Tommy Jr. and Bobby.
He was a good father for just as long as it suited him, where he can squeeze the time in, that he wasn't, you know, busy out in the streets.
Doing exactly what, Marianne was never sure. Tommy hid money in closets and left small pieces of paper around the house that Marianne figured were gambling slips. Finally, after 8 years of marriage, Marianne found out the truth about her husband. Not from Tommy, but from one of his gambling friends.
He said, "What do you think all these meetings are every Saturday?" And I had no idea. I really didn't. And then he finally told me. I felt like I was standing outside myself looking at this person who was so dumb. How did I not know that this is what he was involved in?
Marianne divorced Tommy. It was hard for her to get a waitress job and raise two young sons on her own. But in the mob, it was worse for Tommy.
For a wise guy, for his wife to leave him, it's an embarrassment. You know, what's the matter with you? You can't control your wife.
The mob didn't like it either. As Marianne worked her shift one night in the South Philly crab house, a mobster named Frankie D'Alfonso came in with two bodyguards and took a table at Marianne's section. When she went to wait on him, Frankie strongly urged Marianne to leave her job.
And not so much asking, as more or less telling me that I was embarrassing Tom, that he asked me how much I needed to survive with my children, $200, $300, $400, $500 a week. And I told him it was none of his damn business, and to please get out of my life and my children's lives. I was clearing the table, and he once again tried to persuade me to quit my job. And I dropped the tray, and the tray, I mean, everything, all the crabs, everything went all over him. And he had this, like, off-white suit, and I thought, oh, I'm dead. The two guys jumped up, and I thought I was dead. I really did. I thought I was dead. And he left. Didn't say a word.
After the divorce, Tommy rose through the ranks of organized crime. He opened a restaurant in South Philly called Cuz's Little Italy, just to have a place to take bets and hold meetings. Even the boss, Angelo Bruno, was a patron. The restaurant became infamous on March 21st, 1980. That night, the Godfather had his last supper there.
Bruno has dinner at Cuz's. He's driven home. His car pulls up in front of his house. His driver pushes the push button and lowers the window, supposedly to let some air in because they're in there talking and smoking. A gunman walks up with a shotgun, puts it behind Bruno's head, and pulls the trigger. And Angelo Bruno's gone.
The murder of the boss set off a 5-year mob killing spree. Before it ended in 1985, the bodies of 23 mobsters would litter the streets of Philadelphia. In the end, this man, Nicky Scarfo, was standing on top of the bloody heap, with Tommy Del Giorno by his side.
Scarfo becomes the boss, but Scarfo is based in Atlantic City. So Tommy Del, Bobby's father, becomes one of the dominant gangsters in South Philadelphia.
Tommy showered gifts and money on his two sons, took them to the casinos and the fights in Atlantic City. It was more than Marianne's new husband, a non-mobster named Joe Fisher, could do for the boys.
This is thrown in a child's face, all this money. You know, here we were, my husband and I, their stepfather, living in a row home, just living from week to week, you know, and compared to his father's lifestyle, you know, which would you choose?
But during a mob retreat here in Ocean City, New Jersey in 1985, Tommy Del Giorno learned that he was in trouble with boss Nicky Scarfo.
Scarfo claims that Del Giorno is not doing the job, he drinks too much, he belittles too many people. So Tommy's got this problem, you know, he's fallen out of favor.
New Jersey State Police had bugged the oceanfront condos of Del Giorno and other mobsters, including Scarfo, and picked up every word. The police heard Tommy identify Scarfo as the head of Philadelphia's crime family, and they heard Scarfo's associates imply that Scarfo wanted Tommy dead. New Jersey State Police Detective Ed Johnson visited Tommy's South Philly home to break the news.
The only thing I was there to do was to relay a very important message, and that was that we have information that you're going to be killed and that the contract is being initiated by your boss, Nick Scarfo. Have a nice day.
When the cops played the tapes for Tommy, he decided to save his own life and testify against the mob, a decision that meant he and his family had to relocate to a state police hideaway. That included Mary Ann's teenage boys, Tommy Jr. and Bobby.
I was hysterical. I wanted to go up to his home. I wanted to kill him personally. You know, I knew someday that something like this would happen. I knew in my heart that someday his evilness and his evil ways and what he was involved in was going to drag my children down.
In hiding, young Bobby Del Giorno suddenly turned against his father.
All his life he's grown up with his father with this macho code that you don't rat, you know. You got to be a stand-up guy. And here his father's become a rat. He takes off, runs back to South Philadelphia.
New Jersey police tracked Bobby down and brought him to his mother. She had to convince her son to return to custody with the ex-husband she despised.
I went through hell, and I just wanted everything to end. If I didn't have my sons, I didn't want to live.
The doctors who brought Mary Ann back from a failed suicide attempt told her she had to live for the day her sons would return. It was all she had. American justice was meantime making the most of Tommy Del Giorno. His testimony in a dozen trials helped put away 53 members and associates of organized crime in Philadelphia, including boss Nicky Scarfo, who in April 1989 became the first mob boss in America to be convicted of first-degree murder. Tommy Del Giorno had taken part in 5 murders, but because he cut a deal with the government, served less than 1 year in prison and went into permanent hiding. But his sons, Tommy Jr. and Bobby, wanted the crime family to get the message that they had nothing to do with their father, the rat. So during one trial in Philadelphia, Tommy Jr. testified for the defense and said his father should not be believed because the FBI had coached him. Tommy Jr. had no impact on American justice, but he did buy safe passage for himself and his brother back to Philadelphia. So oddly enough, Mary Ann got her wish. She got her boys back. But as long as her ex-husband is alive, Mary Ann knows she can't really feel safe.
I think about it all the time, of him dying and this being completely over. Because, you know, in the back of your mind, you have to still say maybe it's not over. You know, you think you're safe, you think everything's done, you know. But as long as he walks this earth, it's not completely over.
Bobby and his brother Tommy got married and started families, both living within blocks of their mother's house in South Philadelphia. The closeness of organized crime families is legendary. But sometimes the affection can seem like a stranglehold, especially to a woman who's born into the mob, such as the eldest daughter of Chicago boss Sam Giancana. In the late 1950s, control of the Chicago outfit, which Al Capone organized, passed to this man, Sam Giancana. Like his predecessors, he had killed his way to the top.
Sam Giancana was one of the most brutal persons that I ever met in my life.
He was a very ruthless, a very strong, at one time, leader of the underworld here in Chicago.
But mob ladies have a perspective all their own, especially when their dad is the boss.
He was a kind, generous human being. He, charitable above all things.
Antoinette was Sam's first daughter. Sam treated her like a princess, and so did the entire Chicago underworld.
They treated me with respect. They treated my sisters with respect. And above all, they treated my mother with respect.
Respect and fear. Even among Antoinette's schoolmates, they would always whisper about her in the hallways.
You know, hearing the little things at the locker, hey, she's so-and-so. Don't touch her.
Even when Antoinette married a non-mobster in 1959, the underworld and the upper world paid their respects in the form of cash. Reporters got hold of the list of gift givers.
In addition to organized crime figures and friends of the Giancana family were the names of an alderman, the names of a member of the Cook County Board of Supervisors, and a criminal courts judge were all listed on there as contributing money.
Antoinette's father had his own mob lady, the famous singer Phyllis McGuire. The FBI, knowing that mobsters often reveal secrets to their girlfriends, bugged the couple wherever they could. Sam's loyal daughter was offended.
They even bugged the room he and Phyllis shared in Vegas. I mean, this is a terrible intrusion on people's private lives.
In the 1960s, the family connections went all the way up to the White House. President John F. Kennedy and the CIA cut a deal with Sam Giancana to assassinate Cuban Premier Fidel Castro. But Antoinette says her dad was just taking the government for a ride and never intended to keep up his end of the bargain.
I don't really think, my heart and soul, I don't think my father would have ever done anything to Castro, and he didn't. I mean, you know, he was playing the cat and mouse game again. Hey, we're getting money from the government, you know, let's string this thing out.
But in the end, according to Antoinette, American justice did not play fair. The feds kept hounding Sam to testify about the mob. So in 1966, he fled to Mexico. But with some prodding from the U.S., the Mexicans finally kicked him out in 1974. The FBI was waiting at the border.
They didn't even give him enough time to put on a pair of pants and a shirt and a pair of shoes. This is US of A. This is the government. He came home like a bomb.
On June 18, 1975, just days before he was due to testify before Congress about both the mob and the CIA, Sam Giancana was in his basement in suburban Chicago, cooking sausage and peppers, when he was murdered, execution style. Some said the CIA did it, fearing what Sam would reveal, but most believed the Chicago outfit killed Giancana because he wouldn't turn over money the mob considered its own. Few people shed tears over the death of a brutal mob killer like Sam Giancana, but it's different for a woman who grew up as a mafia princess.
I admire the man. I love the man. His death was a senseless death. And I hope, though, the one that has done it, whether it be the mob or the government, I just hope and pray that their lives in the end are not very comfortable.
In fact, Antoinette believes her father deserves credit for the way he dispensed mafia justice.
Today there are random killings. The killings were in their organization, and it's when you did something very, very bad that there would be some reprisal. Sam and his organization, I consider angelic compared to what's going on in the world today.
As a young woman, Antoinette once remarked to her infamous father that she was considering writing his biography, revealing the secrets of his life. Without skipping a beat, the Chicago boss responded, "You do, and I'll kill you." The truth is, Antoinette would be hard-pressed to write a very informative biography of Sam Giancana. Like the wives of mobsters, daughters don't generally learn all that much about the mob. The gangsters don't want to contaminate their families with the details of their crimes. Details they could be forced to reveal to American justice. But whether a mob lady is born into organized crime like Antoinette Giancana, joins it like Virginia Hill, tries to get revenge against it like Arlene Weiss Brickman, or divorces it like Marianne Fisher, there is one common thread. As veteran mob lady Beatrice Sedway put it, women don't